The twin sons of Aradara beat down mercilessly on the endless desert plains. Waves of heat shimmered above the golden sand dunes, making the horizon appear as if it were rippling like water. Cal Trask, a rugged cowboy with a weathered face and a hat that had seen too many suns, guided his hovering sled across the barren land. He had been traveling for days, carrying a small load of supplies and tools for whoever might need them. Out here, help was rare, and survival depended on both skill and luck. Cal's eyes, sharp and practiced, scanned the landscape. The desert of Aradara was beautiful in a harsh, cruel way, rocks that glimmered in sunlight, strange plants with translucent leaves, and the occasional herd of hardy desert grazers that thrived where nothing else could. But Cal was not here for beauty. He had a simple rule: keep moving, stay alert, and help when it was truly needed. That rule was about to be tested. Far in the distance, a small figure stumbled across the sand, struggling against the wind. Cal squinted, adjusting the visor on his goggles. She was wearing clothing unlike anything he had seen on this planet, earth-toned fabrics decorated with bright geometric patterns. Her long dark hair streamed behind her as she moved. She seemed lost. Instinctively, Cal guided his sled closer. The engines hummed softly, and he maneuvered over the dunes with practiced ease. When he reached her, she had collapsed near a rocky outcrop, her hoverpack skidding beside her. She looked small and fragile under the twin suns, yet there was a quiet strength in the way she held herself, even in exhaustion. "Hey," Cal called, shutting down his sled and grabbing a water canister. "You okay there?" The woman looked up, blinking against the sunlight. Her dark eyes, deep and alert, met his. For a moment, she said nothing. Then, in a clear voice, she spoke. I think I'm fine. Just lost my way." Cal handed her the water, watching her drink carefully. "You're lucky I found you. This desert doesn't forgive mistakes." She smiled faintly, her lips curved with gratitude. Thank you. My name is Aida. I am traveling to the archives in the canyon. I lost my path." Cal raised an eyebrow. "Archives, huh? That's a long way from here. Most people don't even make it past the first sand ridge." Aida nodded. "I must get there. It is important." Her tone was quiet but firm, like the desert wind itself. Cal glanced around, taking in the heat and the endless dunes. He knew she couldn't make it on foot alone. "Look," he said, motioning to his sled. "You can ride with me for the night. There's a small cabin inside my sled, enough to keep you out of the sun and wind. Then we can figure out the rest in the morning." Aida's eyes widened slightly, and for the first time, a hint of relief touched her face. That would be most kind." Cal helped her onto the sled and secured her hoverpack. As they rode over the dunes, the desert stretched endlessly around them, golden and silent, except for the soft hum of the sled's engines. Once they reached a sheltered spot beneath a jagged rock formation, Cal opened the small cabin area. It was compact but cozy, with simple cushions, a water filter, and a small cooking module. "Here we are," Cal said, "safe from the sun and the wind." Aida stepped inside, her eyes scanning the cabin with quiet admiration. "It is comfortable, thank you." Cal leaned against the doorframe. "So, you're heading to the archives? That's a strange place to travel alone, especially in this desert." Aida smiled, a faint curve of pride in her expression. "Not alone. I carry the knowledge of my people with me. The archives hold the rest." Cal tilted his head. "Knowledge of your people?" She nodded. "We are descendants of the Apache, and we have kept stories, inventions, and wisdom through the ages. The archives on Aradara contain technology and history that could help humanity survive and thrive." Cal felt a spark of respect. He had heard stories of explorers and envoys traveling across the stars to preserve their culture and knowledge. But meeting one face to face was something else. "That's important work," he said softly. Aida's eyes met his. "It is, and dangerous. The desert can test you in ways you do not expect. Cal chuckled. Danger's something I know. But you've got guts, I can tell. The two of them shared a moment of quiet companionship, the hum of the sled filling the air. Then, Aida looked at him with a hint of curiosity. And you? Why do you travel alone? Across such harsh lands, Cal shrugged, brushing sand from his sleeve. I guess I like to see what's out here. People need help sometimes, and someone has to be around. And, well, it's peaceful, in a way. You get to think, Aida nodded slowly. I understand. I too value the quiet. It allows me to hear the stories of those who came before, and to plan for those who will come after. Cal noticed her calm determination. She was not just a traveler in need of refuge. She was a person on a mission, and he was beginning to understand that her mission was bigger than he had first thought. The sun began to dip toward the horizon, casting the desert in shades of gold and orange. Cal lit a small stove inside the cabin and prepared a simple meal of protein bars and water. Aida accepted politely, sharing some dried fruit she carried with her. They ate in companionable silence, occasionally exchanging small observations about the desert and the stars above. After dinner, Cal reclined against the wall of the cabin, watching Aida organize her pack. You've got a lot of things in there, he said. Aida looked up, smiling faintly. Everything I carry is important. Each item tells a story, preserves a memory, or helps me in my journey. Cal nodded slowly. He realized that, much like the desert itself, there was more to Aida than met the eye. Her strength, her knowledge, and her quiet confidence were things that couldn't be measured by appearances alone. As night fell, the cabin glowed softly under the light of Aridara's twin moons. Outside, the desert was calm, the sands shifting gently under a soft breeze. Inside, Cal and Aida talked late into the night, sharing stories of their lives, their struggles, and their hopes for the future. Cal realized something unexpected. He wasn't just offering her refuge from the desert. He was sharing a moment of understanding, a connection between two humans traveling through the vastness of space and time. Aida, in turn, seemed to appreciate his company and his willingness to listen without judgment. By the time sleep claimed them, the two had formed an unspoken bond. Cal knew that when the morning came, their journey together would continue. But for now, they could rest in the quiet safety of the desert cabin, under the twin moons of Aridara. And as he drifted into sleep, Cal thought to himself that sometimes, helping someone wasn't just about offering shelter, it was about sharing humanity itself. The first rays of Aridara's twin suns crept over the horizon, painting the desert in soft shades of orange and gold. Inside the small cabin of Cal's sled, Aida stirred, stretching her arms. The coolness of the night had faded, replaced by the heat of morning. She looked around at the small space and smiled faintly. It was humble, yet safe, a temporary refuge. Just as Cal had promised. Cal was already awake, sitting near the cabin window and watching the desert stretch endlessly. He had a cup of warm water in his hands and a thoughtful look on his face. He listened as Aida moved softly, arranging her few belongings with care. You sleep well? He asked, without turning. Aida nodded. Yes. Thank you for your kindness. It was necessary. Cal smiled slightly. The desert doesn't forgive tired travelers. It's the least I could do. For a moment, they sat in silence, listening to the distant wind brushing across the dunes. Then Aida spoke, her voice calm but filled with quiet intensity. I suppose you want to know why I travel to the archives, she said. Cal nodded. I'm curious. You don't look like the usual traveler. You have purpose in your steps. Aida's dark eyes sparkled with thought. I do. The archives hold the history and knowledge of many human colonies across the galaxy. My people, my ancestors, kept stories and wisdom for generations. I carry what I can, but the archives, they hold the rest. Technology, inventions, plans, everything humans need to thrive in worlds like this one. Cal raised an eyebrow. That sounds important and difficult. Aida smiled faintly. It is, but it is also necessary. Humanity survives because we remember and learn. We survive because we adapt. And sometimes, we must seek knowledge where it is hidden or forgotten. Cal leaned back, listening intently. He had always been a man of action, more comfortable with hands-on problem-solving than abstract ideas. Yet, Aida's words stirred something inside him. He realized that human strength was not just about endurance in the desert or skill with tools, it was about knowledge, creativity, and wisdom. I suppose that's why you are here alone, Cal said slowly. You trust yourself to handle the journey. 1. Aida nodded. I do. And yet, every journey is better with company. Sometimes we learn more about ourselves when we share the road with another. Cal glanced at her, realizing she wasn't asking for protection, she was offering partnership. And somehow, he felt honored to be included. They shared breakfast quietly, dried fruit, protein bars, and filtered water, while the desert slowly warmed outside. The twin suns climbed higher, sending long, shimmering waves across the dunes. Once they were ready to move, Aida stepped outside first, letting the sunlight wash over her. The archives lie beyond the crystal canyon, she explained, pointing toward a distant formation that glittered faintly in the morning sun. It is far, but we must reach it. The records there are fragile, and time is short. Cal nodded, starting his sled. Then let's not waste it. Hop on. As they glided across the golden sands, Cal watched Aida carefully. She was light on her feet, steady despite the uneven terrain, and alert to every shift in the wind or sand. He admired her focus. Here was a woman who had traveled farther than he had ever imagined, and she carried not only knowledge, but purpose. During a pause at a small oasis, where water bubbled faintly from a hidden spring, Aida opened her pack and pulled out a small, intricately carved device. This is a memory recorder, she explained. It holds stories from my people. I review them nightly to remember who we are and what we can become. Cal leaned closer, examining the delicate device. Stories. They travel well across time, don't they? Aida nodded. They do. Stories carry lessons, traditions, and hope. They remind us that we are human, no matter where we are in the galaxy. Cal realized something then. He had always thought survival was about skill and strength, but Aida's journey taught him it was also about memory, wisdom, and sharing what one knew with others. He felt a quiet admiration for her. They traveled for hours, gliding over dunes and rocky plains. Cal shared small stories of his own life, how he had grown up on frontier colonies, learning to fix machines, navigate deserts, and help travelers in need. Aida listened with keen interest, asking questions and gently encouraging him to explain his methods. You have a practical mind, she observed. It is useful. Your hands know how to solve problems the mind alone cannot. Cal chuckled softly. Practical is all I know. But you think in ways I've never considered. Aida smiled, her dark eyes thoughtful. That is why we learn from one another. Different experiences give us different strengths. Together, we can achieve more than alone. As the sun reached its zenith, the desert heat intensified. Cal adjusted the sled's shields to keep the cabin cool, while Aida used her knowledge of the desert to guide them along the safest paths. She taught him how to read the shifting sands, sense hidden currents of wind, and locate subtle landmarks that might otherwise be missed. Cal was impressed. Here was someone who combined ancient wisdom with sharp observation, turning the harsh desert into a manageable path. He realized that her refuge was not only about surviving the night, it was about navigating the world with skill, patience, and understanding. During a brief stop under a lone rock formation, Cal and Aida sat together and shared a small meal. Aida recounted stories of her people, tales of survival, exploration, and ingenuity. She spoke of how her ancestors had adapted to new planets, learned from alien environments, and preserved human knowledge in ways that would inspire generations. Cal listened, fascinated. He had heard of such stories, but hearing them from someone living that legacy brought a sense of immediacy and wonder. The desert around them seemed to hum with energy, as if acknowledging the depth of human ingenuity that Aida carried. "You inspire me," Cal said quietly. "I thought I was the traveler helping someone else. But I feel like I'm learning from you, more than you from me." Aida looked at him with a soft, knowing smile. "That is the way of sharing knowledge. The teacher often learns as much as the student. Every interaction, every journey, enriches both." As the day wore on, the two resumed their journey, the desert stretching endlessly ahead. The crystal canyon appeared faintly in the distance, glowing with the reflection of the twin suns. Its jagged spires and translucent walls seemed to hold secrets of ages past. Aida's pace remained steady, her focus unwavering, and Cal realized that she was driven by more than urgency. She carried hope for humanity's future. When they finally set up a brief rest near the canyon's edge, Cal watched her study the landscape. "The archives are ahead," she said softly. "We must prepare to enter carefully. The records are fragile, but the knowledge within is invaluable." Cal nodded, understanding now that her mission was not just a simple journey. It was a quest to preserve human culture, wisdom, and ingenuity. He felt proud to be part of it, even if only as a companion for a stretch of the way. As night fell again, they sat beneath the stars, sharing quiet conversation. The twin moons of Aridara cast gentle light across the sands, illuminating the outlines of distant dunes. Cal realized that the journey was more than survival. It was about connection, learning, and the human spirit thriving even in the harshest environments. "You know," Cal said, breaking the silence, "I thought you needed shelter just for a night. But now I see. What you need is more than that. You need someone to walk with you, someone to understand and share the journey." Aida's eyes softened. "And you, Cal, have provided more than shelter. You have shared your strength, your wisdom, and your humanity. That is more valuable than any protection." As the desert night deepened, the two companions settled into the cabin, hearts full of stories and minds full of possibilities. The stars above shone brightly, a reminder that humanity's reach could extend across worlds, and that knowledge, shared and preserved, was the greatest refuge of all. And as Cal drifted to sleep, he understood that Aida's journey was far bigger than he had imagined, and that he was now a part of it, not as a protector, but as a fellow traveler, learning and growing alongside her. The first light of morning spilled across the desert, turning the sand into a sea of gold. Cal Trask adjusted the controls on his sled as he looked toward the shimmering plains that stretched between them and the crystal canyon. The plains were unlike anything he had seen before. The heat made the air ripple like water, and strange, glimmering plants rose sporadically from the dunes, reflecting the light in brilliant flashes. Aida stood beside him, scanning the horizon with practiced eyes. "These plains are beautiful," she said softly, "but they are tricky. The sands shift, and hidden currents of wind can throw off even the most careful traveler." Cal nodded, gripping the sled handles. "I've crossed deserts before, but this is something else. This is something else. This is something else." Aida smiled faintly. "It is a test, not just of strength, but of patience, observation, and understanding. The desert shows you your limits, if you are not careful." Cal respected her wisdom. He had always relied on experience and quick thinking, but now he realized that every step required attention and thought. Together, they began to navigate the plains, Cal steering, while Aida guided him with subtle instructions. "See those rocks over there?" she pointed. "The sand near them is loose. You need to adjust your sled's stabilizers, or you'll sink." Cal followed her advice carefully, adjusting the sled's controls. The vehicle glided over the sand, keeping steady despite the shifting ground. He couldn't help but be impressed by Aida's knowledge. She seemed to understand the desert in ways he could only guess at. As they moved deeper into the plains, A sudden gust of wind kicked up a small sandstorm. The shimmering plants swayed violently, and the sand whipped against the sled. Cal slowed the vehicle and activated the cabin shields, while Aida held onto the sides, her eyes narrowed against the blowing grit. "Steady," she called, her voice calm. "The wind will pass. Watch the patterns in the sand. It tells you where it is strongest." Cal followed her guidance, navigating carefully through the gusts. After a tense few minutes, the storm passed, leaving behind a stillness that felt almost sacred. Cal exhaled, realizing that surviving the desert was as much about paying attention and working together as it was about skill. "You're good at this," he said quietly. Aida glanced at him. "I have learned to read the land. My people always did. We observed, adapted, and shared knowledge. Every challenge teaches us something." Cal nodded. He felt a sense of humility. In all his years crossing planets and deserts, he had never thought so much about learning from the environment itself. Aida's presence reminded him that humans thrived not only through strength but through wisdom and cooperation. As they traveled, the shimmering plains revealed more wonders. Strange, translucent creatures rose from the sand, floating just above the ground. They glimmered like tiny stars, and when Cal reached out, one hovered near his hand for a moment before darting away. Aida's eyes lit up. "They are called looms," she explained. "They are harmless. They follow light and often lead travelers to water or shelter." Cal smiled, watching the tiny creatures dance across the plains. "This place, it's alive in ways I never expected." Aida nodded. "Every world has its lessons. Sometimes, we just need to observe closely enough to understand them." Hours passed as they moved cautiously across the glittering landscape. The sun climbed high, and the heat grew oppressive. Cal paused to adjust the sled's cooling systems, and Aida used the moment to show him a small device she carried. "This is a soil analyzer," she said, pointing to its glowing screen. "It helps detect water beneath the sand and identify edible plants. It is small, but its knowledge is vital for survival." Cal examined it closely, impressed. "You really are prepared for everything." Aida smiled. "Preparation comes from learning. And learning comes from respect. Respect for the land, for people, and for the journey itself." Cal felt a strange warmth inside. Her words resonated deeply. He had always worked alone, solving problems as they came. But now, he realized, survival was richer when shared, when knowledge and skills were combined. By midday, they reached a large expanse of glittering crystals embedded in the sand. The sunlight refracted through them, scattering rainbows across the dunes. The sight was breathtaking, but Aida's eyes were sharp and alert. "Careful here," she warned. "The crystals are fragile. Stepping on them could damage them or create a false path." Cal adjusted the sled, moving slowly and deliberately over the crystal field. He noticed that Aida's guidance was subtle but precise. She had an instinctive understanding of the terrain, something that could only come from experience and knowledge. As they crossed the crystal plains, Cal asked, "How did you learn so much? Your skills, they're incredible." Aida thought for a moment. "From my people, from observation, from travel. Every generation passes down what it learns, and every traveler carries a story. I combine them." Cal smiled. "I suppose that's why humanity thrives. We learn, we adapt, and we share." Aida's eyes softened. "Exactly. That is our greatest strength." Suddenly, the sled hit a patch of shifting sand hidden beneath the crystals. It tilted slightly, and Cal struggled to regain balance. Aida leaned over, guiding him with quick instructions. "Shift the stabilizers to the left. Now." Slowly. "Good." The sled steadied, and Cal exhaled, grateful for her guidance. "I would have struggled there without you," he admitted. Aida shook her head. "You would have learned. But together, we move more efficiently. That is the value of cooperation." Cal looked at her thoughtfully. She was right. Alone, he could have survived the desert. But with Aida, they moved faster, safer, and more intelligently. He realized that humans, when combined with knowledge and respect, could achieve much more than any single person alone. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, painting the desert in soft orange and pink hues, they reached the edge of a shallow canyon. The crystals beneath their feet glimmered one last time before fading into the sandy ground. "This is our stopping point for the night," Aida said. "We rest here and prepare for the canyon tomorrow. The archives lie within, and we must approach carefully." Cal guided the sled to a sheltered nook between two rock walls. He set up the cabin shields to block the evening wind, while Aida arranged their supplies. They shared a simple meal and water, reflecting on the journey so far. "You know," Cal said, breaking the quiet, "I thought helping you was just giving you a night's refuge. But now I see. It's more than that. It's learning, sharing, and growing together." Aida looked at him and smiled softly. "Yes, refuge is not always about shelter. Sometimes it is about partnership, understanding, and respect. You have provided more than safety, Cal. You have provided a willingness to walk this journey with me." Cal felt a sense of pride and humility. He had started as a lone traveler, offering shelter to someone in need, but now he understood that the journey itself was a kind of refuge, a chance to learn, grow, and connect. As night fell, the twin moons of Aridara rose, casting gentle silver light over the desert. The crystals in the plains reflected faint colors in the distance, creating a magical glow. Cal and Aida sat quietly, listening to the sounds of the desert, the whisper of the wind, the distant movement of creatures, and the subtle hum of life, even in this harsh world. "You are remarkable, Aida," Cal said quietly. "Not because of what you carry, but because of how you carry it. The knowledge, the patience, the wisdom," Aida smiled. "And you, Cal, are remarkable for your openness, your skill, and your willingness to learn. Together, we show what humans can do when we respect each other and the world around us." The desert stretched endlessly around them, silent but alive. Cal felt a deep connection not just to Aida, but to humanity itself. They were capable of surviving, thriving, and creating wonders even in the most challenging environments. As they settled into the cabin for the night, Cal realized something important. The journey was far from over, but the experience had already changed him. He understood that refuge was not just a place to sleep, it was a chance to share, learn, and grow together. And in that shared journey, humans could reach heights far beyond what any individual could achieve alone. Under the glow of the twin moons, Cal drifted to sleep, the hum of the sled and the whispering desert around him. Tomorrow, they would face the Crystal Canyon. But tonight, they rested as equals, companions, and witnesses to the enduring strength of humanity. Morning light spread slowly over the desert, painting the rocky canyon in soft shades of pink and gold. Cal Trask adjusted the sled's controls as they approached the entrance to the Crystal Canyon. The walls shimmered like glass, reflecting the light in 1,000 colors. It was breathtaking, almost magical, and Cal had to shield his eyes against the brilliance. Aida stood beside him, calm and confident, her eyes scanning the canyon carefully. "This is it," she said softly. "The archives lie within. We must be careful. The paths are narrow, and some areas are fragile." Cal nodded, feeling a mix of excitement and caution. He had crossed deserts, plains, and crystal fields, but nothing prepared him for this place. Every step they took seemed to echo against the walls, and the air was cooler here, carrying the faint hum of the canyon itself. As they entered deeper, the true nature of the archives began to reveal itself. Crystal formations lined the walls, but they were more than mere decoration. Embedded within them were tiny devices, glowing faintly with holographic projections of maps, schematics, and images of distant worlds. It was a repository of human knowledge, spanning centuries and galaxies. Cal's jaw dropped. This is incredible," he whispered. Aida smiled, her eyes shining. It is. These archives were built to preserve knowledge, to help humanity survive, thrive, and adapt. Every civilization, every colony that came before us contributed something. This is our inheritance. They carefully navigated a narrow path, avoiding fragile crystal formations that could shatter if touched. The air seemed alive, humming softly as if acknowledging their presence. Aida led the way, pointing out sections of the archive and explaining their significance. This area, she said, contains agricultural innovations, seeds, soil treatments, and cultivation techniques for harsh planets. Without this knowledge, many colonies would struggle. Cal examined the glowing projections. He could see techniques for growing crops under artificial suns, purifying water from scarce sources, and sustaining life in extreme environments. It was an astonishing collection of human ingenuity, and this, Aida continued, guiding him to another section, holds engineering designs for energy systems, transportation, and shelter construction, knowledge that allows humans to adapt to planets that were once thought uninhabitable. Cal felt a deep sense of awe. Humanity had spread across the stars and left behind this treasure trove of wisdom. He realized that survival was not just about strength or skill, it was about preserving knowledge, learning from the past, and sharing it with others. As they moved deeper, Aida paused at a large, circular chamber. Holographic projections floated in the center, showing humans and alien landscapes interacting, schematics of settlements, maps of planets, and even detailed cultural records were displayed in three-dimensional clarity. This is the heart of the archives, Aida explained. Here, knowledge from all over the galaxy is preserved. It is a testament to human resilience, creativity, and cooperation. Every person who contributed left a piece of themselves behind, so future generations could learn and grow. Cal looked around in wonder. He could see how humans had adapted to countless worlds, learning from mistakes, improving technology, and sharing knowledge across generations. He realized that this was more than a collection, it was a living record of humanity's potential. Aida walked among the projections, her hands gently tracing the glowing images. Every record here tells a story. And every story has a lesson. Our survival depends not just on tools and machines, but on the wisdom we carry forward. Great coming. Cal nodded slowly. I never imagined it would be like this. You told me the archives were important. But seeing it, it's something else entirely. Aida turned to him. Importance is not always obvious from the outside. It is revealed when you experience it, when you understand what has been preserved and why. That is why I journeyed here. Cal felt a quiet admiration for her. She was not only carrying the knowledge of her people, but also the responsibility of protecting humanity's collective wisdom. Her mission was far greater than he had first realized. They spent hours exploring the chambers, Aida guiding him through different sections. She explained the significance of each area, from environmental management to social systems, from energy solutions to cultural records. Cal was amazed at the depth and breadth of human achievement. You see, Aida said as they paused in a chamber filled with historical records, humanity has always thrived through curiosity, cooperation, and creativity. We survive not because we are the strongest, but because we learn, adapt, and share knowledge. Cal nodded thoughtfully. He realized that his own skills, his practical problem-solving, his experience in the desert were part of the same human story. Every person contributed in their own way, and every action mattered. As they explored further, they reached a small alcove with delicate crystal panels. Aida carefully activated a projection, revealing an ancient blueprint of a sustainable colony. Tiny holographic images demonstrated energy-efficient habitats, water recycling systems, and community-based resource management. This, Aida said softly, is why the archives exist. So that knowledge is not lost. So that humans can continue to thrive. No matter where they are, every innovation, every story, is a guide for the future. Cal watched in awe. He realized that he had been part of this story too, not as a record keeper, but as someone who learned, shared, and applied knowledge in his own way. Aida turned to him with a gentle smile. You see, Cal, refuge is not always about shelter or safety. It can be about understanding, learning, and growing together. By walking this journey with me, you have contributed as much as I have. Cal felt a warm sense of purpose. He had started as a lone traveler, offering shelter for a night. Now, he was part of something much larger. A shared journey to preserve human knowledge and ensure the survival of future generations. As the twin suns of Aradara began to set outside the canyon, their light filtered through the crystal walls, casting rainbows across the chambers. Cal and Aida paused to take it in. The colors seemed to dance across the holographic projections, creating a sense of harmony and wonder. You've shown me so much today, Cal said quietly. Not just about the archives, but about humanity. I understand now why your journey is so important. Finally, 2-7, Aida nodded. And you have shown me that strength comes in many forms. Courage, curiosity, and willingness to learn are just as vital as skill or knowledge. Together, we are stronger. They spent the rest of the evening reviewing some of the records, Aida explaining details and Cal asking questions. He learned about the creativity and adaptability of humans across planets, how they solved problems, and how they preserved culture, even in isolation. For the first time, Cal truly understood the meaning of the archives. They were more than machines and holograms. They were a living testament to the ingenuity, resilience, and collaboration that defined humanity. As night fell and the twin moons rose over the crystal canyon, Cal and Aida settled into a quiet corner. They reflected on the day's discoveries, sharing thoughts and insights. The desert outside was silent, but the chambers seemed alive with the knowledge and stories of countless humans. You've taught me more than I ever imagined, Cal said softly. Aida smiled. And you have taught me that partnership and trust are as important as knowledge. By walking this journey together, we preserve not only records, but the spirit of humanity itself. Cal felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The journey that began with a simple act of offering refuge had grown into something far greater. He had learned that humans thrived not only through survival but through learning, sharing, and respecting each other's strengths. As they prepared to rest for the night, the chambers glowing softly around them, Cal knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges. The archives held secrets yet to be explored, and the journey to preserve and understand them was far from over. But for now, under the twin moons of Aradara, and surrounded by the brilliance of human achievement, Cal felt a profound connection to Aida, to the archives, and to humanity itself. Refuge had become understanding, and survival had become shared purpose. And in that quiet, luminous canyon, Cal realized that humans were capable of incredible things, not because of strength or weapons, but because of creativity, cooperation, and the willingness to learn from each other. Humanity's true power lay in its knowledge, its spirit, and its endless curiosity. The twin suns of Aradara rose gently over the crystal canyon, casting long shadows across the shimmering walls. Cal Trask and Aida had spent the night in the heart of the archives, surrounded by the glowing holograms and delicate crystals that preserved humanity's knowledge. The previous day had revealed more than technology or maps. It had shown them the ingenuity, resilience, and creativity that defined human civilization across the galaxy. Aida rose early, her eyes already scanning the holographic records. There is much to do today, she said softly. We must review the final sections of the archives before the suns reach their peak. The records here are fragile, but the knowledge is vital. Cal stretched and followed her. I thought we had seen most of it yesterday, he said, glancing at the glowing projections. But it feels like there's always more to discover. Aida smiled. That is the nature of knowledge. The more you learn, the more you realize how much there is to know. Every record, every story, adds to the whole. Humanity survives not by knowing everything, but by learning continuously and sharing what we know. Cal nodded, feeling the truth of her words. He had started this journey thinking he was offering someone temporary refuge. Now he understood that true refuge was about connection, understanding, and shared purpose. They moved through the remaining chambers carefully. Some held records of ancient human settlements on distant planets, detailing how people had adapted to harsh climates, limited resources, and unknown dangers. Others contained lessons from collaborations with alien species, showing the power of cooperation and empathy. Cal's eyes widened as he watched a holographic projection of a city floating in orbit around a gas giant. Its energy systems powered by precise calculations and the collaboration of thousands of engineers and thinkers. "Humans can do anything," he murmured. Aida nodded. "We can. When we work together and preserve what we learn. Every challenge we face teaches us something. And that knowledge carries forward to help others." Cal realized that he had learned something invaluable from Aida's journey. Humans thrived not just because of technology or survival skills, but because they remembered, adapted, and shared knowledge. It was a lesson that applied to all people, on all worlds. As they reached the final chamber, Aida paused before a large projection. It displayed the cultural archives, stories, songs, art, and traditions from countless human colonies. "These are the heart of humanity," she said softly. "Technology and survival skills are important, but culture is what keeps our spirit alive. Without it, we are lost." Cal watched the glowing images, feeling a deep sense of wonder. He had always respected human ingenuity, but seeing the richness of culture preserved across galaxies filled him with awe. It was not just survival, it was thriving, learning, and sharing in ways that transcended generations. Aida gently guided him through the records. She showed him stories of families who had crossed deserts, oceans, and stars. Communities who had built sustainable cities on barren worlds. Artists who had created beauty in places where survival seemed impossible. Each record carried a lesson, a memory, a piece of humanity's enduring spirit. Cal realized something profound. He had thought he was helping Aida, but in truth, he was learning from her mission, from the archives, and from the legacy of humans everywhere. Refuge was not just a physical shelter, it was the preservation and sharing of knowledge, culture, and purpose. After hours of careful exploration, they paused in a chamber that overlooked the entrance of the canyon. The twin suns shone brightly, reflecting off the crystals and creating a rainbow of colors across the sands below. Cal felt a sense of peace and pride. He had been part of something far greater than himself. A journey that honored the strength and creativity of humanity. Aida turned to him. "You have been a faithful companion, Cal. Your courage, your curiosity, and your willingness to learn have mattered as much as any knowledge I carry." Cal smiled, feeling the warmth of her words. "I thought I was just giving you shelter for a night. But I see now that this journey, it's been bigger than that. You've shown me what humans can do when we learn, share, and work together." Aida's eyes sparkled. "Exactly. Refuge is more than a place. It is understanding. It is learning. It is walking alongside another in their journey. You have given me more than safety. You have given me partnership, respect, and shared purpose." Cal felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had started as a lone traveler, wandering the desert for survival and small acts of kindness. Now, he was part of a legacy that stretched across planets and generations. He understood that humanity's true power lay not in strength alone, but in creativity, cooperation, and the willingness to learn from each other. They spent the remainder of the day organizing the archives, carefully recording new observations and updating holographic maps. Cal learned the intricacies of the technology, applying his practical skills to help preserve the delicate records. Aida guided him, teaching him the importance of precision, patience, and respect for the knowledge stored here. As the twin suns began to set, casting long shadows over the canyon walls, Aida and Cal prepared to leave the archives. They had accomplished their mission. The knowledge was preserved, the records were safe, and humanity's legacy remained intact for future generations. "You have changed my understanding of what it means to help someone," Cal said quietly as they stepped outside. "Refuge is not just shelter. It's about shared purpose, learning, and growth." Aida smiled, her expression gentle. "And you have reminded me that even the smallest acts of kindness, offering help, listening, walking alongside another carry immense value. Humans are capable of incredible things, especially when we share the journey together." Cal looked at the desert stretching before them, the glowing plains and shimmering crystals reflecting the last rays of sunlight. He felt a deep connection not only to Aida but to humanity itself. Every person who had come before, every mind that had contributed to the archives, had left behind a legacy that could inspire and guide others. "I'll never forget this journey," Cal said softly. "Not the deserts, not the crystals, not even the archives, but the lessons and the people." Aida nodded. "Nor will I. And remember, Cal, the journey does not end here. Humanity's path continues, and every one of us can contribute in our own way. Knowledge, curiosity, cooperation. They are our greatest tools." As night fell, the twin moons of Aradara rose once more, casting silver light across the desert. Cal and Aida set up camp for the evening, not out of necessity, but to rest and reflect. Around them, the desert was quiet, yet alive with the subtle hum of nature and the lingering presence of human achievement. Cal lay back, staring at the stars, thinking about the journey that had begun with a simple act of offering refuge. What had seemed like a small gesture had grown into a profound experience, a journey of learning, discovery, and shared humanity. He realized that humans could face any challenge, adapt to any environment, and thrive on any world, as long as they preserved knowledge, respected each other, and continued to grow. Aida watched him with a soft smile. She had achieved her mission, but more importantly, she had shared it with someone who could carry the lessons forward. She had shown Cal, and through him, the audience of humanity itself, the true meaning of refuge, connection, understanding, and the endless pursuit of growth and knowledge. As the desert night deepened, Cal and Aida sat quietly, sharing stories of what they had learned and imagining the future. The journey had been long and challenging, but it had been one of the most rewarding experiences either of them had ever known. Finally, under the twin moons, and surrounded by the shimmering canyon, they fell silent, content in the knowledge that humanity's legacy was safe, and that the spirit of exploration, curiosity, and cooperation would continue to guide future generations. Cal Trask, once a lone traveler, offering a simple night's refuge, now understood that true refuge was something far greater. It was learning, growing, and walking alongside another on a journey that honored the past, strengthened the present, and prepared for the future. And as the desert stretched endlessly under the stars, Cal felt a sense of peace, pride, and wonder. Humanity was strong not because of weapons or power, but because of knowledge, cooperation, and the enduring spirit that allowed humans to reach for the stars. The journey had ended, but the story of learning, sharing, and thriving, was only beginning.